It's the lifeline of Europe. It follows an unstoppable path from the Black Forest to the Black Sea. Its water forms spectacular landscapes. History was written on its banks. The Danube. It has seen many cultures come and go. From its source to its mouth, it covers nearly 3,000 kilometers and traverses 10 countries. The Danube has always been a border, but also a bridge between peoples. Along its path, it meets up with diverse traditions and lives. Everything is in a state of flow, past and present, present and future. This little stream in the German Black Forest attracts many visitors, including from the eastern countries adjacent to the Danube. Luminita and her daughters Andrada and Julia are Banat Swabians. For them, the river is the lifeline of Europe. Is that the source down there?
Okay. Machen wir das hier so.
Researchers only discovered in 1954 that the River Breg, which arises here, is the Danube's longest tributary.
Das ist die Donau.
That's the Danube. This means the Breg is considered the main headstream. Danubius, the river god, keeps watch over the source. This is the point where the measurement of the Danube's length begins. Oh look, 2,888 kilometers from the mouth of the Danube. I now remember that when we were children in Romania, we learned in school that the Danube originates in the mountains of the Black Forest and flows down to the Black Sea. We thought that was funny. Black Forest, Black Sea. Somehow we thought it was interesting. For me, it was like a fairy tale country. This forest where Little Red Riding Hood got lost. And we wanted to experience it together someday. Because we live in Ulm, right on the Danube, it's always kind of a thing. And since I come from Romania, and we are often on the Danube, there as well, the river has meaning. It's the river with the greatest meaning for me. Hello, we're at the source of the Danube, the real one. If you're going to do things, do them right. Here in the Black Forest, in the middle of nowhere, is where the Danube begins. It's so far in the middle of nowhere that the taxi driver couldn't find it. This is what the Danube looks like. It starts off little and cute. To me, the Danube stands for Europe. It's the connector from here, from the west to the east of the continent where I was born, in Romania. For us school kids back then, the place where the Danube arises was a legendary spot. The river represents connection, and even if the country borders change politically, the Danube remains. It keeps flowing. The Breg runs its course from here. The findings of researchers in the mid-20th century caused quite a stir regarding the true source of the Danube. Because barely 40 kilometers further along, in Donaueschingen, in the castle garden of the Prince of Fürstenberg, lies an artistically framed karstic spring, which is considered the historic source of the Danube. This water flows underground 100 meters further on into the Brigach. On the edge of the city of Donaueschingen, the Brigach and the Breg flow together into the Danube. Here at the latest, the dispute about the source is no longer important. But the young Danube has scarcely begun to flow when it disappears again. At least in the warm months, the river sinks into karst mountains in the Swabian Alps and flows underground through tunnels and caves before turning up again about 12 kilometers further on in the Upper Danube Nature Park. In the Upper Danube Valley between Tuttlingen and Sigmaringen, the Danube has cut its way deep into the Swabian Alps and created a monumental landscape. Here the Danube is still very narrow, practically inconspicuous. The Buren Abbey is the first in a sequence of abbeys along the Danube. The wild karst landscape is especially popular with canoeists and recreational athletes, but the rules for traveling along the river are strict. Even the entry points are clearly defined. Ranger Markus Ellinger is responsible for enforcing all the rules in the national park.
When I go to the river myself, I'm mostly interested in seeing what's happening on the Danube, whether I can see the breeding spots that are important to us, whether I can see beaver tracks. I have a different view while on the Danube. Here we have a troop of young ducks. The Danube is very popular with many recreational paddlers because of its craggy panorama, so we had to restrict paddling a bit. We have human contact with the riverbanks, contact with the shallow water gravel, the riverbed, which disturbs fish breeding, and we try to keep everything a little in balance.
The water level here has to be between 53 and 120 centimeters. If it isn't, traveling on the river is prohibited entirely to protect the plants and animals.
Here in the Danube Valley between Tuttlingen and Sigmaringen, that's a stretch of about 50 kilometers, we have more than 900 different kinds of plants. In the entire country there are somewhat more than 3,000, so you could say that on a stretch of 50 kilometers we have 1/3 of all the plant species that exist in Germany. And that's unique, you won't find that anywhere else.
Today there's an onrush. The ranger has to control the Weir exit.
All good. Nobody's playing loud music. There aren't any instruments on board. I don't see any bottles of alcohol. That's something I would find fault with.
It's the weekend and the weather is nice, so the activity on the river is intense.
The renters are allowed to put a certain number of boats in the water per day. I'm controlling that now, but I'm ready to answer questions if anyone has any. Markus Ellinger, I'm the ranger here in the valley. Your renter should have given you a river license. May I see it?
Everything is in order with this group.
These are the river licenses that the renters give out. You see how busy it is already. If we didn't regulate it, we would certainly have 3, 4, 5 times as many people on the river on days like today. The idea keeps circulating that we should keep people out entirely and let nature develop undisturbed. Areas like this are important. The national park has a core zone in the northern Black Forest that people can no longer go into. But generally, I think it's important to preserve access for people, especially children and young people. It's a little trite, but people only protect what they know. If children can't have this experience here, they wouldn't know how to appreciate it. It's just an experience we have to make possible. We should retain it, but try to channel it properly.
Not only canoeing, but bicycle riding along the Danube is a popular activity. The Danube bicycle path leads from the source to the Black Sea. In cities, the path is diverted to the asphalt starting in Ulm. The traditional barges, commonly known as Ulmer Schachteln, are immortalized on the wall of the city hall. These are wooden boats with flat bodies and long oars for steering. They floated downstream towards the east, transporting goods and people. On barges like these, citizens of Ulm headed off into an uncertain future in the 18th century. Beyond the Ulm Minster, with the highest steeple in the world, where the city is almost at an end, a reconstructed Ulm barge lies in the harbour, the Elchingen.
Right, down. Good. Out.
Richard Goetz has created an unusual hobby for himself and his friends. While they were looking for a project to work on together, they had the idea of reconstructing a barge. No sooner said than done. That was in the mid-90s. Today they are expecting lady visitors to their ship. Andrada, the Bernhard Swabian, has started up a little fashion label in Ulm with the help of her sister and mother. They want to do a photo shoot on board a barge. Since only a few of these historic boats exist in Ulm, the photos promise to be exclusive.
Seb, will you free up the front for us?
Once a year, the friends go on a trip together down the Danube, at least as far as Austria. But today they are only sailing in front of Ulm city gates.
The body was built by a barge builder in Austria, but I built the rest myself, so I have a completely different relationship to it. In the same way, of course, I've developed a different relationship with the Danube over time. Now that we have the barge, we always look to see how is the water level. Is it dirty? Is there stuff floating in it?
The Danube has always been an important transportation and traffic route. Even Emperor Franz Josef I of Austria had himself and his wife Sissi transported on barges to Vienna. In 1712, a huge wave of emigration began from Ulm, especially to Hungary and Romania, where settlers and craftsmen were needed. So for us young Ulmers, I'd say the Ulm barges are really steeped in history. And although I have roots in Bernhard Swabia, I had actually never had contact with an Ulm barge. Of course, you're familiar with them. You see them traveling along the Danube once in a while, but you don't get onto one and come in contact with one very easily. Though it's fun today, it could sometimes lead to death in the past.
Back in the 18th century, it was much quainter than today, but also much more dangerous because the Danube wasn't regulated. Today it's a canal. We have 13 locks on the first 100 kilometers. At the time, the Danube was a wild river. There were shoals and sometimes a boulder sticking out where you could get stuck. It was really dangerous at the time, but now it's been alleviated through regulation and the power plants.
Today, the Elchingen provides everyone with a relaxed journey in a gentle wind. Further downriver, in Leipheim, we come across a small high-security area. Engineer Bernhard Röhrle has come to check on things. 1% of Danube water is channeled into waterworks here to purify it into high-grade drinking water.
We had a flood recently, which means the Danube brings up leaves, branches and other things. These accumulate on the screens. This floating debris would clog the inflow, so we regularly sweep it away with our brooms.
From here, the Danube water flows through pipes to the waterworks in Langenau, 15 kilometers away. Most people in the area get their drinking water from groundwater reserves. But since there isn't always adequate groundwater everywhere, they tap the river.
The Danube's water quality is average. It's not bad, but not particularly good. That's because too many substances are still fed into the Danube. It has to do with the sewage treatment plants and drainage from agricultural areas. That's why we have to work to improve the Danube's water quality. It's also a political task.
Due to its natural suspended sediment, the water comes to the plant in a greenish-brown color.
Right here, you see the river water as it comes right from the beautiful blue Danube. And here in the basin, you see how we get the water dirty so we can purify it.
Added ferrous salts have a magnetic effect. They bind unwanted impurities, which results in flocculation.
Right to the top. Good. You can really see nicely how the flakes settle. You can see how quickly the cleaning takes place, so we can go with the clear supernatant to the next treatment stage.
The 6 different treatment stages of the system clarify the water, kill germs, and remove bad odors and flavors. A broad section of southwest Germany, including cities like Stuttgart, Esslingen, and Ludwigsburg, get their drinking water from here. Using special technology, the waterworks in Langenau can filter out microplastics and hormonal substances, that is, small concentrations of trace substances.
The amount of water that flows through here is enough to fill 20 bathtubs per second. So it's really a huge amount of water. It was once green river water from the Danube, then it turned brown, and now it's clean and pure. It's fresh and free of bacteria. This is drinking water. We accomplished it with our 6 stages of treatment.
Drinking water is one of the most closely monitored resources in Germany. Water demand fluctuates. It's higher in the summer than in the winter. Giant water tanks store the water until its release.
It's deeper than any swimming pool. That's 400 million litres that flow through here every day. Enough drinking water for 3 million people.
For stand-up paddler Pascal Rösler, his time on the river is like meditation. Today he's in the Weltenburg Narrows. The Weltenburg Narrows in Lower Bavaria is a breakthrough valley of the Danube as it passes by Regensburg. King Ludwig I already granted this area special protection status.
It's really one of the most beautiful spots along the Danube. The Danube is allowed to flow. It's completely natural. You only hear the water splashing a bit. I think it's relatively good for the soul. The special thing about stand-up paddling is that for one thing you're standing on the water. That sounds so mundane, but still it's fascinating. And the only thing that counts is the next paddle stroke. You stroke, you see the water pass by your heel, the moment has practically passed, and you go on again. Just like life, it's the river of life, so to speak.
If commercial enterprises and politicians had had their way from the 1950s to the 1970s, the scenic Weltenburg Abbey would probably now be located on a reservoir. Fortunately, conservationists were able to prevent this from happening. Pascal is also passionately committed to nature. So much so that in 2017, he pedaled along the entire length of the Danube.
My route went from Munich via the Isar River to the Danube below Deggendorf, and then on the Danube to the Black Sea. I was wondering why I actually couldn't drink the water I was paddling on, and then I said, okay, what do I have to do to draw more attention to the Danube and the rivers? So I decided to paddle them, with GPS tracking so people could see where I was, and with quite a large media presence. Now it's our goal to make Danube water drinkable by 2042. It's really about having a higher vision and inspiring people to do something about it. Ultimately, it was 2,465 kilometers, 2 months, more than 600,000 paddle strokes, and 6 to 10 hours per day on the water. There were 3 days when I didn't paddle, and I'm richer by a wonderful experience, great personal development, and to top it all off, a beard.
Weltenburg Abbey is home to one of the oldest breweries in the world. The beer brewed here has received several awards as the world's best dark beer. Pascal uses his break to get acquainted with the monks.
And your relationship to water is, do you have a special relationship? Baptism. Baptism, oh right, oh yes.
Whenever possible, Pascal seeks conversation with people to direct their attention to the importance of our rivers.
Morning.
Morning.
How's it going? Still a long way to the Black Sea. Yes, I was there once, not every year.
The Hall of Liberation on Mount Michelsberg announces the entrance to Kelheim from afar. The Weltenburg Narrows end here, as does the 5.5-kilometer natural course of the Danube.
Later on, round about Deggendorf, shipping also increases. At that point, the river has been straightened out even more. I always say these straightenings take away the river's soul.
Here near Kelheim, the part of the Danube that is useful for transporting goods begins. It's still 2,414 kilometers to the mouth at the Black Sea. The stone bridge in Regensburg is unique. When it was built nearly 9 centuries ago, it was the only Danube bridge between Ulm and Vienna, a masterpiece of medieval architecture. The Walhalla has risen up over the Danube near Regensburg since 1842. King Ludwig I had this Hall of Fame built for important personalities. About 153 kilometers further along the river, one can witness a natural spectacle. At the tip of Passau, 3 rivers, clearly visible because of their different colors, flow together. The Black Ilz, the more green than blue Danube in the middle, and the milky grey Inn. This means the city of Passau has to continually battle strong floods. But the water has also brought great wealth to the city. The location is well situated and has been the site of flourishing trade since the Middle Ages. The Baroque splendor of St. Stephen's Cathedral also attests to the city's wealth. It holds a very special treasure, the largest cathedral organ in Europe, with 17,974 pipes and 4 glockenspiels. The 5 organ mechanisms are spaced throughout the cathedral and controlled by a console in the gallery. Each mechanism has its own sound character and can be played individually or in tutti. It's only about 30 kilometers from Passau to the Jochenstein power plant on the Austrian border. Built in the 1950s, this is one of the oldest Danube power plants. The border runs right through the river here. Substances from the Danube and the Inn ultimately blend in the power plant's turbines, and the combined water mass continues to flow eastward. Not far from the border, in Engelhardtzell, these fish have found a new home. Sterlet, carp, white-eye bream, Rotylus meidingeri, and many more. Fish biologist Gerald Zauner has arranged for them to be caught in order to give people an understanding of the Danube water world.
All the fish that are swimming here were swimming close to here in the Danube not so long ago, with the exception of the rare beluga sturgeons, which only still live in the Danube Delta area. The Danube is the European river with the most fish species. Home to more than 60 different species, there are many that exist only in the Danube and in no other river system.
The largest freshwater fish in the world can also be admired here. The beluga. It is a kind of sturgeon and can get up to 8 meters long. Old legends claimed it ate children, but it is completely harmless to humans.
The beluga originally lived in areas near the Black Sea coast and travelled far beyond Regensburg during the spawning season. That means the beluga's migratory routes were more than 2,000 kilometers long, and while they were migrating, many were caught because a big fish meant lots of meat and later lots of caviar. That was the reason why belugas very quickly became very rare in Central European countries. Today, this upstream migration is no longer possible for belugas because of the Danube power plants. Repopulation efforts in the Central European Danube don't make much sense because it's pretty much impossible for them to live here due to a human use of the Danube.
The beluga gets on exceptionally well with the divers who regularly clean the basin. Outside, you can recognize the border by the difference in a riverbank reinforcement. In Austria, the banks have been renaturalized. Gravel banks and shores have arisen, new habitats for plants and animals. Gerald Zauner has supported the restoration of the natural bank areas with his research activities. With colleagues, he regularly monitors the fish population in this area. The method is called e-fishing or electrofishing. A small electric shock paralyzes the fish without harming them. This allows the ecologists to measure the success of their bank reconstruction. For instance, they can see whether the gravel banks have led to an increase in the reproduction of Danube fish.
These two colleagues are using landing nets to catch the stunned fish that have been paralyzed with the anodes from the electric current. They are only stunned for a short period of time. The fish are stored temporarily in a container. They wake up from their daze, are measured and logged, and are then returned to the Danube. Nose 230. Nose 245. Nose 350. The Naze is the fish which more or less served as the original Danube's main fish. Its numbers have decreased significantly. Now the Naze population is recovering, especially here in the areas where these riverbank structures have been reconstructed into these gravel banks, which is of course a very good sign. Leek 170, Sander 545, Leek 145.
Gerald Sauner grew up right here in Engelhardtzell along the Danube.
I don't want to say the privilege, but I actually had the burden of growing up along a section of the Danube that changed very drastically during my childhood, changed negatively, because of regulatory measures and the construction of power plants. This section of the Danube developed unfavorably from an ecological point of view. That was actually a trigger for my calling, for my profession, to make a difference here. And with these long-term studies, we see that things are really improving again and that it's going in the right direction.
A bit further downstream, halfway between Passau and Linz, the Danube has created a wild, romantic landscape. Boats travel from A to B, and there are no bridges. Instead of flowing relatively purposefully from west to east, like it does otherwise, the Danube meanders through the Bohemian Massif. The shipping industry long considered the Schlögenband to be one of the most dangerous sections of the course of the Danube. Every ship that travels down the Danube through the Schlögenband must go through the lock in Ottensheim-Wilhering shortly thereafter. Elisabeth Strauss concentrates on monitoring the boat's entrance. She is one of 2 female lock attendants in Austria and also a member of the volunteer fire department. She got interested in working at the lock during a crisis operation on the Danube. I think it's a male domain with its 12-hour shifts. But I think all the procedures are comprehensible. There are mechanical procedures, hydraulic procedures. If something needs repairing, the technicians from the association do it. There's no criteria that speaks against a woman working on the Danube. There are already a number of women captains too. There's activity here day and night. Transport boats take turns with cruise ships. This captain is driving in here very carefully. He's probably still practicing. They have to do a certain number of practice trips to get their shipmaster's certificate. Of course, it slows us down a bit, especially when we have ships waiting on both the upper and lower water levels. But generally, we're glad that they steer in here carefully, since that way we avoid accidents. And if they didn't come, the whole lock would stand idle, which of course we don't want. The traffic has to keep flowing. On its path that takes it about 350 kilometers through Austria, the Danube overcomes a height difference of more than 150 meters. 10 Danube power plants use this current in Austria to generate energy from water power. Ships must pass through a lock at each of these power plants. From the tower of the lock supervision station, Elisabeth controls the facility, meaning she opens and shuts the gates, fills and empties the chambers, and then switches the light signals. So I've turned the light up there to green so that the captain has clearance to exit the lock chamber. It's well past midnight, and it's quiet on the ship. But traffic through the lock doesn't let up. Maxima 1, the left chamber is open for you. Some captains are surprised to hear a female voice come from the loudspeaker.
Es gibt welche, die freuen sich, dass ich als Frau da bin, und das sind dann auch die,
Some of
die
them are
laufen,
glad a
wenn
woman
sie
is there.
einfahren, und der eine,
They're the
der
ones who
ausgefallen
wave when they
hat, hat sich
drive in.
gefreut, dass mir dauernd den Daumen nach oben zeigt.
One captain was so happy that he always gave me thumbs up.
Aggressiv war bis jetzt noch
So
keiner.
far, nobody has been
Sie probieren
aggressive.
halt manchmal, dass sie
Sometimes
glauben,
they
na ja,
test things.
das ist eh eine
They think,
nette,
oh,
vielleicht kann ich
she's a
jetzt
nice
halt
one.
trotzdem das so
Maybe
machen,
I can
wie
do
ich mir
it the
das
way I want to,
vorstelle
as the
als
captain.
Aber
But then I act the way my colleague showed me. Sit up straight, lower your voice, and then you're quickly taken very seriously.
sehr schnell sehr ernst genommen.
Elizabeth also has to go outside to check the fittings and the state of the channel. It's a somewhat spooky walk in the middle of the night. I actually feel very comfortable here. You have to get used to all the sounds. It's always creaking and groaning somewhere. But nobody can really come in here. We have a security door downstairs. It's better if I don't bring any murder mysteries along to read. But otherwise, I'm not afraid.
Angst habe ich keine.
Since the drop height in the water chambers is nearly 13 meters, one can't be bothered by heights.
Gerade in den Bereichen, wo ich nicht sehe.
We have cameras right in the areas where I can't see anything. If a passenger should fall in the water, or if the ship goes adrift from the current in the lock chamber, I see it immediately. And I see the rest from the back. That's why it's so important that we're always paying attention. There are also quiet periods in the course of a 12-hour shift. Then Elizabeth can enjoy the dawn breaking over the water.
Der Geruch der Donau, das
The
ist
Danube smells a little bit fishy, like algae. In the winter it smells like nothing, and suddenly a breeze comes up and you know spring is coming. In the summer it smells a little like sun cream, and you remember that, yes, this is a running river. And you look to see what the fish and ducks are doing. This is life. This is the Danube. And that's why I like being here, looking at it, being part of it. Originally, Elizabeth Strauss was a kindergarten teacher. Later, she worked in a theatre. She has found her dream job at the Lock. Linz on the Danube is surprising. The Celtic name for the first settlement here in around 400 BC was Lentos, which means flexible. Though this referred to the Danube's windings and changes in direction, the name has become a testimony to the city's ability to change. Hitler planned to expand Linz as a Führer city and supported arms factories here for the Third Reich. In the 1970s, the city underwent a change in image. Today, Linz stands for contemporary art, future-oriented science, and the avant-garde. Street artists have turned the harbour into one of the world's largest open-air galleries. Several hundred murals adorn the industrial buildings along the Danube. Leonhard Gruber founded the harbour gallery called Mural Harbour in 2012. He says you get the best perspective from the water.
I came to the harbour for work, saw these giant grey walls and thought they'd look better if they were changed. Maybe not necessarily beautified, but changed. And then the project took its course.
Und dann, ja, hat das Projekt so seinen Lauf genommen.
The oldest image is the ram. The largest is the snake. 900 square meters of wall space as an anatomical study in comic style.
Here in Linz, looking to the past is sometimes a little difficult and painful, and I think that's why so many future-oriented and contemporary projects can gain a foothold here.
Street art is temporary. Only a few large pictures remain. The others are repeatedly painted over. Austrian artist Sarah Kuppner, whose artist name is Sios, is one of the few women in the scene. For her, it's elementary to work on the wall physically, with her entire body. Sarah is tall, which is a significant advantage. Sometimes the last few centimeters really make the difference. On the other hand, you can just use a longer pole. That works too. There's no need to complicate things. I always try to bring movement into the image. Life is dynamic, hardly ever static. Of course, the image is static. There's no way it can't be. But for me, the creative process is the most important thing. And I find it stimulating to select images and motifs that challenge me to put a lot of dynamism in the movement. Yesterday, she primed the wall. Today, she started working early. She wants to accomplish a lot before the sun gets too hot and the light gets too bright. As she moves constantly up and down the ladder, she transfers her motive, piece by piece and layer by layer, from her head to the wall of the building. I really like to paint the plants and animals that I see in my natural environment. Ideally, even the environment around the wall I'm painting. And in Linz, there's the Danube. And in this particular case today, it's a sea swallow. In principle, these birds follow the major currents up from the sea. I think that's an interesting topic that ties into migration. That exists in the animal world too, willingly and unwillingly. I find it exciting to tackle these subjects. Sarah uses a mixed technique, emulsion paint and spray paint. When you go up really close, you see the wall's characteristics. Of course, it's a challenge. The spray settles differently because of all of the bumps. When I do shading, the particles skim along the wall and become less distinct, and you get a color progression. Sarah has been interested in graffiti since she was a child. But she only started working intensively and professionally as a street artist 10 years ago. Leonard, who made this wall available to Sarah to paint, wants to see whether the image is recognizable yet.
How's it going? Looking good.
Yes, it's going great.
I bought you a little refreshment. A Linzer tart. Dry, but genuine.
Dry?
You'll see. It was hard to prime, wasn't it? There's already red in this coarse-grained wall.
Yes, but this time I left it like that on purpose, since red is the only color that I put onto it. It's even really important that there's another red in it. I painted over where it was yellow or blue. That was a little time-consuming, but that's why the wall somehow has an interesting character. Leonard invites the artist to a little boat trip so she can see the image from a distance. They want to get an overall impression. How does the piece work in its environment? The birds on the water are known for landing on various railings in the harbour. Particularly from this viewpoint, it's like they're making a landing approach on a harbour wall. Now only the beak and a couple of nuances are missing until the image is finished. Sarah says the most important thing is the creative process and that she enjoys her work. There's a river near where I live too, and I always like being near the water. There are a lot of legal walls along the Danube because industrial areas, bridges and so on lend themselves to graffiti. It and the buildings somehow almost belong together. This image is not meant to last forever either. Wind and weather will have an effect. Perhaps another artist will come along and create something new. This harbour gallery is not static. Everything is in flow, like the city of Linz, which changes, and the Danube, which continues flowing eastward. Around 2,000 kilometers from the mouth sits an icon of Baroque architecture on a cliff, the Benedictine Melk Abbey. It's considered the gate to the Wachau, a Danube valley in Lower Austria, where the river is allowed to flow free. The Danube defines the lives of residents in peaceful and in turbulent times. During the flood of 2002, the Hotel Donauwörth in Weißenkirchen was no longer next to, but in the Danube. If you can picture it, the water was definitely up to the top of the curtains. That's how high the water was. We piled sandbags up about to the first step. It doesn't make sense to pile them higher than that, because they can't withstand the current and the pressure. It's a huge amount of pressure. Once an inn for raftsmen, the hotel has belonged to the Rosenberger family since 1983. Since then, they have lived through a number of floods. A flood protection wall has only been in place since 2010. If you look at it, thankfully you tend to suppress things a little bit. If we hadn't had flood protection 6 years ago, we wouldn't be here anymore.
Probably, right?
No, because at some point you've had enough. You don't want to do it anymore. When the Bavarian Environmental Agency announces that a flood is imminent, it will be here in 12 hours. This means it's time to get busy. All their belongings have to go up to the second floor. They're still in shock from the 2002 flood. I remember sitting at the staircase above the reception area that night, so the water almost got up to the second floor. And I was really crying my eyes out. And suddenly my father-in-law was standing behind me saying, "Maria, if you don't stop crying, you'll never get the water out." In the meantime, life is back to normal in the hotel, though there were 5 more small floods in the restaurant before the protective wall was built in 2010. But the Danube innkeeper doesn't give up. She was awarded a Grand Million toque for her cooking. Weibesblagloss, harvested right on the slopes of the Danube. Her creations are regional and seasonal. The season determines the menu. In spite of everything, Maria likes to walk alone along the Danube to relax.
Mein Verhältnis zur Donau ist eigentlich fast pervers.
My relationship to the Danube is actually almost perverse, because I love it. It sounds really brutal, but on the one hand, you're always afraid of floods, and on the other, it's your lifeline.
Sie ist halt auch die Lebensader.
My husband's grandmother always said, "The Danube gives and the Danube takes." And that's really how it is, in a nutshell. The Wachau landscape is formed by the Danube and molded by the wine growers' vineyards. The Wachau lies between Melk and Krems, about 80 kilometers west of Vienna. Castles, wineries, old farmhouses, fortresses and ruins testify to times long gone by. The Romans already cultivated wine here. On these hills grow some of the best grape varieties in Europe. Grüner Veltliner grows particularly well at the lower levels. Brothers Heinz and Georg Frischengruber have undertaken a labor of love here, on the right side of the Danube.
Here we are in the Kreuzberg area. This is very special for my brother and me, since we inherited it from our grandmother. And as you see, it's a very old vineyard. It hasn't been cultivated as much in recent years. And we decided to develop a very special project, the Grüner Veltliner from Kreuzberg.
It's going to be a rich, complex wine, grown without the use of insecticides. Sustainability and biodiversity are important to the brothers.
We always see to it that we work with a mixture of vegetation. It's ploughed and then mowed, so the crop is in wonderful balance and thrives here. With the Kreuzberg project, because we're on the right side of the Danube, which is not as famous as the other side, we simply want to show what's really possible here and to really produce a premium wine that can compete in the top league in Austria. We put all our energy into it. As you see, the vineyard, the soil, the conditions are perfect.
The Frischengruber family has cultivated wine here on the slopes of the right side of the Danube for 150 years.
If you look at the Wachau in its entirety, I'd say we were given the best hardware as a gift. And we are the software, of course, in combination with nature, with all the beneficial insects, with all the smallest animals. If you think about what an amazing job they do for you, brilliant. We even have time now and then to drink a glass or two.
The higher dry locations are more suited for Riesling. Work in the vineyard takes a lot of sweat. The Frischengrubers pull the grapes by hand. Both brothers have already worked in international wine growing areas, Australia, South Africa, Chile. But the unique view and the special Danube climate exists only here.
Behind us in the background we have the Danube. If you look very closely, you see there's an enormous flow rate. In the Wachau section it's still a mountain river. The flow rate always causes a kind of turbulence, a kind of airiness. For one thing, that helps us combat frost. For another, when we sit beside the Danube like now on such a beautiful warm day, it's really refreshing. That is, the Danube has an enormous cooling effect on the valley, especially in summer. And with white wine cultivation in particular, day-night temperature differences are essential for the aroma.
In contrast to the traditional vineyards on the left side of the Danube, the right side has only recently been rediscovered as a region for high-quality wines.
Many young vintners have moved up to this side. Young people have a different approach to wine. I try to produce wines on the northern slopes that stand out because of their freshness. It's becoming increasingly harder to find that in such hot summers, and it's very exciting at the moment. It works really well for us on our side.
So well that the wines from Rossatz on the Danube are no longer a well-kept secret. Directly across from them, on the opposite bank of the Danube, is the town of Dürnstein. Richard the Lionheart was once kept prisoner in the fortress ruins above the castle. The town's history and idyllic location have made the 800-person community one of the best-known tourist spots in Austria. A bit further downstream, a 21-kilometer-long artificial island rises out of the water, the Danube Island in Vienna. Recreation areas on the water can be found right in the middle of the metropolis. Without the transport of goods on the Danube, the city would never have become so famous. The remnants of the imperial royal monarchy can be experienced here in all their glory. Southern Vienna is not quite so grand. There's a somewhat morbid spot hidden in the industrial harbour area. Formerly right on the Danube, now a bit further away from the bank due to frequent floods. The Cemetery of the Nameless. Until 1940, corpses retrieved from the Danube and local suicides were buried here. The names and life situations of most of them are unknown. What's remarkable is that there was someone there to take in these poor souls. Josef Fuchs, played among these graves as a child. Now he is the third generation to care for them.
My grandfather was our community gendarme, or policeman. Every time drowned bodies or people who had hanged themselves or suicides were found in the area, the police, the public health officer and the gravedigger were notified. One day there was someone who had hanged himself in the River Meadow. They drove to the meadow and cut him down from the tree, and when they had him down, they saw he was the son of the gravedigger. From that point on, the gravedigger no longer went to the cemetery. My grandfather took over the burials and carried them out here until 1940.
Now his grandson, Josef Fuchs, volunteers to make sure things are in order. He sometimes has to clear away the remains of nighttime vandalism or battle particularly stubborn weeds. But he wants the cemetery to remain in its natural, mysterious state.
There are two children's graves here in the cemetery. One was a newborn that my father found when he was only 17 himself. It was in a shoe carton. He got it out of the water. Little child, it was buried here. And since it was a male infant, they gave him the name Zeppel, since they didn't know who he was. He was unknown, and all the people who come here decorate the grave with toys for the little one.
But not only children are buried here. Josef Fuchs can tell tales about a number of personal lives.
A little bit further on, there's the grave of Rosa Majewski. She was an 18-year-old servant girl at the time who started working on an estate against her parents' wishes. Unfortunately, she got pregnant and lost her job on the estate. She couldn't go home very easily, and she drowned herself in the Danube. I really heard all the stories from my grandfather. As a child, of course, I found it all a little macabre. Of course, the more gruesome and ugly it was, the more interested we were. Naturally, he told us a lot of things that are not very nice, but well, that's the way it was at the time.
He stores his tools for tending graves in a little shed. Here are also remains of the time when the cemetery was still in operation. The sign for the cemetery when it was right on the bank of the Danube, and the hook that was used to recover bodies.
This is a coffin that's been here in the mortuary since 1940. It was made by a carpenter from a nearby area. He always made 2 or 3 wooden coffins available so that all the people who were buried here were buried in a coffin.
Volunteers still help preserve the memories of the unknown with dignity. The crosses come from disbanded graves in Vienna.
My grandfather put that out into the world. We just continue maintaining them. We see that it has a purpose. His opinion was that they were people too, and I share that idea. Why should they be forgotten? We continue to maintain their graves and see to it that these people's memories can also be kept alive.
The current has changed here following reconstruction of the harbour gateway. This means corpses no longer float up at this spot. Between Vienna and the Slovakian border lies the last large continuous wetland meadow in Central Europe. The Danube is allowed to flow freely here and floods the shore area. Fluctuations of up to 7 meters continue to reshape the landscape of the Donauauen National Park, a paradise for plants and animals. An artificial embankment runs right through the middle of it. one animal species has chosen this easily accessible, unprotected place of all places to lay its eggs, the pond terrapin. National Park Ranger Maria Schindler is underway with her dog and her colleague Astrid Hille. They are looking for nests to protect them from predators like foxes and martens. Are there eggs in it? Yes. Then I'll get the grade. If they discover a nest, the rangers place a grate over it and record the coordinates. The grate's mesh is coarse enough so the baby turtles can slip through, and small enough to protect them from the claws of larger animals. Can you please give me the GPS from the bag? The European pond terrapin was nearly extinct when the national park applied this protection program in 2002. Wetland meadows like these hardly still exist in Central Europe. Probably the main reason they lost their habitats is that entire meadows were drained and entire rivers were straightened. The terrapins need not just the one body of water that they're in, but a number of them. They need deeper ones where they can spend the winter. They need shallower ones with heavy undergrowth, where the young spend time when they're first hatched. They need a very extensive water system to maintain a really good population, where they can survive all the phases of their lives and all seasons. Another reason for the near extinction of the pond terrapins was that they landed in cooking pots as fasting meals in Catholic areas. Fortunately, that's no longer done. Now that the nest is secured, the dog is supposed to find the mother. Maria wants to mark and register all terrapins if possible. Astrid, I found her, but she's already marked. She's an old woman. Information on every individual animal is linked to the markings. Here we have a marked female, number 164. That means she was certainly marked for the first time more than 10 years ago, when we found her egg deposition. But we measure them from time to time, so we know if they're still growing a little. 11.5 carapace width. Plastron length 14.3. The individual shell plates grow throughout their lives. That means they have very small ones at first, and every year a ring grows, like with a tree. They also have a dormancy period in the winter and only grow in the warm periods. On the back, you only see this right at the bottom. That means she's probably already about 20 years old. I probably didn't contribute to her still being alive, since I took the project over 17 years ago, and she's definitely older. But all of us, Heinzi, Astrid and I, probably helped her young survive a number of times. We started with these clutch conservation measures in 2007. They help a lot of offspring make it, hers included, probably. The turtles try to keep their time on land to a minimum because the danger is greatest for them there. They are really water animals, perfectly adapted to water, and she really wants to get back in there. The rangers also care for injured animals, which they release to their natural environment after receiving treatment. She has injuries down on the plastron and on the abdomen. and it looks like she's been scratched. It was definitely some other animal chewing on her. She seems very active. Yes, she seems to be fine. Okay, take care. When Maria started on the protection project, there were about 400 pond terrapins in the national park. By now, there are nearly 2,000. It's a great success and at the same time a motivation for the rangers to keep going. From Austria, the Danube flows towards Slovakia and forms the border between both countries for about 7 kilometers, starting in Devin. The Devin castle ruin is part of the district of the capital, Bratislava. Over centuries, Celts, Romans, Slavs, and later even Napoleon battled over this strategic location. The castle lies above the Morava River, which flows here into the Danube. Underneath the castle, an impressive memorial recalls the hundreds of people who were shot by the Czechoslovakian communist regime. The Iron Curtain was raised on the spot in 1950. 3-meter-high barbed wire fences guarded around the clock. In the period leading up to 1989, a number of women and men tried to swim through the Morava towards Austria. Bratislava has been the capital of Slovakia since 1993. An UFO seems to be parked right across from the Pressburg, a stylistic mix of modern, socialist and classical constructions shapes the cityscape. The capital is still young and has a carefree, open atmosphere. One of the longest cable-stayed bridges in the world has been stretching across the Danube here since the 1970s. Twice a week, 42-year-old Juraj Sobolic earns his money here by taking an unusual walk, as he says, 85 meters above the ground.
This isn't my main job. I'd say it's the cherry on the cake, which is why I really like coming here.
Juraj is a professional firefighter. The elevator goes up to the viewing platform of the UFO and into a bar restaurant right underneath it. From here, he climbs out the window with visitors looking for an adrenaline kick. Student Dominika wants to test her courage today. Juraj, the firefighter, gives instructions and tends to her safety. Everything's ready for her skywalk. I'm starting to get excited. Of course it's super, but I'm also a bit afraid. The skywalk leads people past 50 windows, one time around the UFO at a height of 85 meters.
Okay, good. And now, the first step into the unknown. Here you go. Okay? Everything okay?
Yes, all good.
Super.
Juraj practices the lunge right over the bridge.
Great. Okay, let's go now.
The adrenaline kick keeps going. They're not even halfway through. The unusual shape of the observation tower has been recognized internationally. It is a member of the World Federation of Great Towers.
If you don't have enough of a buzz yet, you can let yourself fall into space more. Every one of these grommets can hold 30 Dominicas. You really don't need to be afraid. I weigh 3 times as much as you, and it's completely safe. A little bit more. I'll hold you from behind. Okay?
You're sure it will hold?
Absolutely sure. Perfect. Wonderful.
It's fantastic. Oh my God, so high. The view, which can also be admired more easily and safely from the platform of the UFO roof, offers a panoramic picture of Bratislava and surroundings up to 100 kilometers far.
Konečne má takú podobu, ako si zaslúži.
To bolo super.
I'm absolutely thrilled. That was amazingly beautiful. Wow.
To bola úplná krása. Wow.
There is also a beautiful and unusual modern construction 25 kilometers south of Bratislava. On a peninsula in the middle of the Danube, the Danubiana, a unique art museum named after the great current that was called Danuvius in Roman times. The sculptures all around the park are exposed to wind, weather and water. A Dutch patron and a Slovak gallerist founded the Museum for Contemporary Art in 2000. Their intention was to use art to connect distant lands and cultures, just like the river does. Just a couple of kilometers further on, the Danube has formed an extensive island area that is shared by 2 countries, Slovakia and Hungary. The much larger Hungarian part is called Sigid-Kurz, a water oasis for animals and people. The riverbed of the Danube was repositioned during the construction of a Slovak power plant. The old arm of the Danube in Hungary was dry for a long time. Thanks to renaturalization measures taken by Hungarian scientists, the ecosystem has been restored today. Nearly 60 kilometers onward, János Kula is a factory worker and blacksmith. He spends every free moment on the Danube. There was a flood recently, but now the water level is back to normal. It's the perfect time to indulge in his passion. János is looking for gold. To learn the technique, he watched old movies about gold mining. This region around Gonyú in Hungary was particularly popular with gold panners in the 1930s. Years of trial and error have made János a pro.
You have to examine the sand, not just look for sparkle.
After initially looking around, he quickly finds the signs he was looking for.
Here, for example, here a bit of red is visible. The great Danube sand with red granite in it. It's iron powder, magnetite. We should find something here.
János acts quickly to set up his self-built gold washing equipment. He has even brought along a generator to make sure everything runs like clockwork. No pressure at all. He enjoys every second on the bank of the Danube.
Maybe I'm exaggerating, but For me, the Danube is divine, a paradise. I really love it. It provides us with fish, firewood, a bit of gold, and, well, maybe even luck. I can't describe it any other way.
One shovelful of gravel after another. Janusz can keep it up for hours. It's almost an addiction. As long as there is water in the Danube, there will always be gold, he says.
There's already less gold because of all the power plants. They hold it back. During floods, everything is washed over and there's more again. At one time, you could find 3 to 4 grams a day. Now you can only find 0.5 grams or 0.8 grams, depending.
The fine river gold is scarcely visible to the eye. He uses a rubber mat. If there's a flicker of gold, it sticks to it. He carefully rinses the mats in a bucket. The sediment from the bucket then goes into the gold pan. And the sand actually begins to shine. Fine gold dust is visible. The Danube has brought him luck again today. Kilometers further downstream, the Danube flows past Esztergom, the former capital of the Kingdom of Hungary. The Danube now forms the border to Slovakia. The border crossing is in the middle of the bridge. Visible from a distance on the castle hill sits the Basilica of Esztergom, one of the largest churches in Europe. Near Visegrad, the east-westerly direction of the river makes a nearly 90-degree curve towards the south, the Danube Bend. German inscriptions on buildings are testimony to settlers who moved to this area in the 18th century. The Danube Swabians arrived at the time in special boats, the Ulm barges. The government had encouraged them by offering benefits since the population was severely depleted following the wars against the Turks. Workmen were needed. They also came to Vats and created a new home for themselves here in Hungary. In 1994, construction workers in the Dominican church in Vats coincidentally discovered stairs to a crypt. They had no idea it was a sensational find. After they reported it, a small group of scientists immediately hurried in to investigate the interior of the crypt. Among them, ethnologist Anita Čukovič. The first time she entered the crypt in the winter of 1994, she couldn't believe her eyes. We had never experienced anything like it. We found a portal into the past, into the 18th century. It felt like you could meet the people from over 200 years ago, who had built the city with their own hands following the Turkish exile. Men, women and children, various citizens of Waltz, aristocrats, members of the army. They were all telling us something about themselves, and we tried to listen to them. The scientists found 265 coffins with mummified corpses. Among them were many ethnic Germans. Between 1730 and 1840, many honorable citizens of Vats were buried here. The reason for the good condition of the corpses: constant air circulation in the crypt, dry air, and minimal changes in temperature. The higher the coffin had been stored, the better preserved the mummy. In the lower coffins, only skeletons were found. Today, a number of the mummies lie in this museum, a former wine cellar.
Magdolna
Salomon died aged 9. She probably came from a rather wealthy family. You can tell by the grave goods. She was one of the better preserved mummies because her coffin was right at the top. Scientists from all over the world have been investigating the mummies for decades. Ethnologist Anita Čuković is primarily interested in the clothing and inscriptions on the coffins. About every 10th mummy provides information about its name, age, and situation in life through paintings and grave goods. This woman is wearing a typical robe from Vats, a dress with a long scarf and a cap underneath. A testament was found with Georgi Stevanović that shows he was a tailor, a wealthy man. He had a house and a vineyard and was married 3 times. The settlers brought their own burial culture with them to Hungary. The German coffins were colorful and rich with symbols. The children's coffins were blue. In the late Baroque, at the beginning of the 18th century, colors have symbolic meaning. Blue stands for the heavens, or angels in the celestial sphere. This is illustrated by the depiction of a small angel on the coffin, for example. Anita hopes that the museum will provide a look at the 18th century and stimulate thought about life's big questions. Shortly before Budapest lies the small Baroque town of Szentendre. The tranquil streets and green surroundings have always attracted creative people. In the 1920s, art students founded an important school of painting and artists' colony here. Its influence is still evident today. Amarila Kniha is a painter who seeks inspiration from nature in the diverse water landscapes of the Danube. I pay attention to reflections. The reflections on the surface of the water. They're the only thing I pay attention to. The reflections make my work easier. They form an abstraction of the real image, which I just have to transform through the painting process. The constant change, the rivers and water are important elements in the history of painting. Perhaps that was also a reason that many artists settled here in Szentendre. More than 200 painters, sculptors, and artisans live in the city. There's a gallery on nearly every corner. The lampshades over the streets were an art project, but the residents liked them so much that they stayed. With the photos she took on the banks of the Danube, Amarila returns to the studio that the Hungarian government has provided. Selected grant holders can dedicate themselves entirely to their art in this space. Amarila has already primed the canvas with paint. Her technique requires a dry base, so everything can flow nicely over it. On the canvas and along the riverbank, objects and colors come together and mix with each other.
Összefolynak a dolgok, összefolynak a színek.
Her style is called dripping or action painting. Tirelessly, she paints and drips the colors on the canvas that lies on the ground. She's not interested in a realistic image of the riverbank. Inspired by the landscape, she processes her memories, experiences, and thoughts in the studio. She's also happy to just let the paint run down the canvas sometimes. It all seems random, but at the end it bears an astonishing resemblance to the photo of the Danube riverbank. I deliberately apply the paint horizontally at first, then I let the drops run down vertically and spread them in a horizontal direction again. This produces the right rhythm of color and blending for me. Amarilla says working on the floor is like a rush of energy. She finishes the painting process on the wall. It can take days and sometimes weeks before she's satisfied, and the atmosphere on the water has been translated to her artistic world.
Amikor sétálok a Dunaparton és fotózok,
when I walk along the banks of the Danube and take pictures, I process some of the thoughts and feelings I have into images. But this process is completely unconscious.
Valahogy beleteszem a műbe is, de ez teljesen tudat alatt történik. Számomra a Duna erőt jelent és energiát.
To me, the Danube radiates strength and energy. When I go to the Danube, this energy recharges me, definitely.
Egyértelműen feltöltödöm ezzel az energiával.
She passes this energy on in workshops for children and adults, and thereby keeps the legacy of the Szentendre Artists Colony alive. The Danube flows around 3 islands in the Hungarian capital of Budapest. There's good fishing far from the noisy metropolis, without any hooks.
This is a magnet that can pull up to 60 kilos. It works with metal. Unfortunately, you can't find gold with it. A magnet like that hasn't been invented yet.
Martin Paul is a magnet fisher. His favorite place to fish is on the banks of the Óbuda Island, the largest in Budapest. Here, Martin finds history that has been cast in metal. The Ottoman Empire, the Habsburg monarchy, and 2 world wars have made the Danube into the biggest museum in the city. Martin works as an archaeologist, but his search for treasure doesn't let up when his workday is done.
I'm very interested in Budapest's history. Here we come across all facets of the past. The remains of several centuries lie here, practically under your feet.
He likes the summer months at low tide best.
There are days when I come out here and find absolutely nothing, and today I've already hit the jackpot twice. The day can't get any better.
A grenade from World War II.
It wouldn't be too bad as a candlestick. It would look quite nice with a candle on it.
Russians, Hungarians and Germans took part in the devastating battle for Budapest between October 1944 and February 1945. 100,000 tons of metal sank in the Danube.
I can tell right away. Oh, I caught something. You feel its weight and then comes euphoria. Absolute euphoria.
A German army helmet from the final days of the battle for Budapest.
It's not in the best condition, but I much prefer things like this, since you can read the past and history in it. You can imagine the helmet falling into the water. What was happening here in this area? This piece tells us about it.
Budapest, the capital and cultural center of Hungary, and the second largest city on the Danube after Vienna. 1.7 million people live here. Budapest arose from the union of two cities, Buda on the one side of the river and Pest on the other. But the two cities only began growing together with the construction of a bridge. Budapest's economic upturn began in the 19th century with a chain bridge. At more than 170 years, it's the oldest in the city. A chain bridge can only get this old if it has people who take care of it.
People like to build cities on rivers because a river is a provider of life. But at the same time, it divides the city. That's why you need bridges. I often think about how much influence the Danube has on my life. If it weren't for it, the bridge wouldn't exist and I wouldn't have this wonderful job.
János Fosgos is a fourth-generation bridge keeper and one of the few in Europe. The chain bridge, which was designed by Englishmen, requires a great deal of maintenance. The individual iron links rust easily and must be inspected daily.
I'm one of the few people who knows where the problem areas are that need taking care of. The sensitive spots are vital, so the bridge holds up. My father always said, if you love the bridge, it will tell you where it's hurting.
Just a few steps away is the bridge keeper's office. It's nearly as old as the bridge itself. János is actually a trained comic artist. He's been drawing the bridge since he was a child. When his father retired, János knew he had to take on the task, though he earns less as a bridge keeper.
The bridge is known for its large hulking gates, but it still doesn't feel heavy to us. It seems light and airy in perfect harmony.
Daughter Anna grew up on the bridge. She's aware of the bridge-keeping tradition in her family. Her great-grandfather was a skipper on the Danube. Her grandfather was the bridge keeper for 40 years, as was her uncle. If Anna takes over, she will be the first female bridge keeper in the construction's history. My father never demanded that I do it. On the contrary, I'm the one who wants to. He actually thought of my older brother for the job. Then I got interested, and now we're competing for this wonderful position. The bridge connects not only parts of the city, but entire generations of this family. It's uncertain whether the bridge can withstand the 40,000 cars that cross it every day for long.
When I stand up here on the chain, I can feel it straining. The bridge moves a lot. That reduces its life expectancy day by day. I'm hoping there will be a decision to ban cars on the bridge and only allow pedestrians.
The Danube provides a harmonious backdrop for the Budapest thermal baths. One of the most elegant buildings is the Galat Spa. Already the Romans and later the Turks used the 120 hot springs that bubble from deep in the earth in Budapest. The used thermal water is channeled to the Danube. Regulations required to be filtered and purified first. It's a free wellness retreat with a view, a hot spot that's relatively unknown to locals. This is about to change. One day a week, in a small cellar in the middle of the city, people are busy casting, hammering, and polishing cement. Simon Körzegi had the idea 8 years ago.
Cement is a cheap construction material, and it's easy to process. The challenge for us is to transform this rough material and make it fine and good-looking. We make jewelry and designer furniture from the material that people used in the 1970s to build cement walls and rough buildings.
The architecture students design art objects for the banks of the Danube. The fastest way to get around is by bicycle, even though the streets of Budapest don't provide much room for two-wheelers. The Riverside Road prevents open access to the river.
It's always been my dream to create a space like this on the banks of the Danube where people come close to the water, where they can swim and grill and benefit even more from the Danube.
The designer steps in the steep river embankment finally provide a path to the thermal water runoff. Final preparations are now underway for a Danube pool party. The city has not yet prohibited the students' initiative. The steps are securely fastened to protect them against the next flood.
If we young people want to achieve something, we find a way. But I hope that in the future there will be legal possibilities that make the banks of the Danube more attractive for everyone.
The Danube leaves the metropolis and winds 160 kilometers through southern Hungary to the city of Bolyai, shortly before the Croatian border. For 40 years, the nuclear power plant has stood in the middle of the unspoiled countryside in Poksh, cooled by water from the Danube. The only nuclear plant in Hungary, it covers half the country's total power needs. The Danube continues to meander gently through the Great Hungarian Plain. The river meadows that once characterized it have been turned into farmland. The landscape is flat on both sides. Low hills line the riverbanks now and then. These are good conditions for grapes. The locals recognized this 300 years ago. In Hajusch, on a sunny knoll, Stefan Kner cultivates 2 vineyards with 3 different grape varieties. His father, Stefan Kner Senior, helps him.
The soil is very good for the vineyard because the Danube flows here. And the climate is good as well. Good grapes make for a very good wine.
Die Trauben ist sehr schön, dann ist die Wein auch sehr schön und gut.
The Kners are descendants of the Danube Swabians who settled here 300 years ago and cultivated wine. Stefan Senior is one of the few who learned the traditional way of cultivating wine and still speaks Hajusch Swabian.
I was still a small child, maybe 6, 7 or 5 to 6 years old. We went into the wine garden then and helped a little.
A few years ago, his son took over the 5,000 square meters, though he operates the vineyard as a hobby. The 2 of them take care of the grapes on weekends.
I'm happy about it, that you can see what I started, that it's being continued. Didn't I express that well?
Stefan and Stefan are not exactly the fastest on their converted Russian transporter. But they don't have to be, because in the wine village of Hajusch, time seems to stand still. Knowledge of wine cultivation came to the region with the Danube Swabians from southwestern Germany. Almost all residents had their own wine cellars. There are more than 1,200 of them in Hajusch. They are gradually being reactivated by the descendants. The 2 Stefans have taken over 2 wine cellars and produce 3,000 litres of wine per year. Their most recent vintage is one of the best. They primarily cultivate red wine. Blaufränkisch, Kadaka, Cabernet Franc and Zweigelt are typical of the region. At some point, Stefan Jr. wants to be able to live off his grapes. He currently works with the local Wine Growers Association.
Good. I still have to buy a lot of barrels, a lot of machines. When I have a lot of money, I will do this as my main job. I think it's good too.
The first wave of emigration from Swabia to the southeastern Danube region began in the late 17th century. It was a long and difficult journey that usually began in Ulm. The Habsburg land, abandoned during the wars with the Turks, was to be resettled. An archbishop lured the immigrants to Hajusch by leaving land to the Germans. Of the 2,800 inhabitants, about 30% are still ethnic Germans. Stefan and his acquaintance Maria Schön want to preserve their forefathers' traditions, especially the language. Janoschne Oswald is over 80 years old and still cultivates Swabian. Higher Schwabian was spoken in her family throughout her life. She even still knows the old sayings.
Wie wenn der Wind vom klaren Eis kommen dort. Das verstand ich. Wie könnt ihr das noch sagen?
Stefan learned German as a foreign language in school.
The most important thing is to respect our ancestors. We must remain aware of our identity. Language is what binds people. That's how it was with the people of Hajas, in contrast to the other settlements. That's why it's important to preserve this asset.
Higher Schwabian has naturally changed through close exchange with neighboring Hungarian villages. A number of words disappeared and new ones were added. There are about 600 sayings in Hajas. I would like to show people that. Look, you've preserved 600 sayings. That's a miracle. The goal is to preserve this miracle. To do so, Stefan has built a sound studio, specifically to record an acoustic dictionary. Higher Schwabian, translated into both German and Hungarian.
Sagen wir auch drei Arbidno.
Unfortunately, many dialects are disappearing with globalization and the opening of the world. Hajas is at this point. We must begin with the dictionary now. We really should have done it 10 years ago. Maybe we could have preserved even more words.
There is little industry dotting the banks in southern Hungary. Since the 19th century, people in the region have lived off a fruit that is ripe for harvesting in late summer, the pepper. 4,500 tons are picked per year, mostly by hand. Half are exported. Hungarian peppers are considered to be the best in Europe. All around the city of Boya, everyone likes to cook from scratch, but always with the same ingredients. Local paprika and carp from the Danube are very important. It is carefully heated and seasoned with salt. Danube carp soup from Boya is served with homemade noodles. The fish soup is at least as well known in Hungary as the Szegedin goulash. At the 1,444th kilometer, the Danube passes its geographic midpoint. Immediately after this, it leaves Hungary to become the border between Serbia and Croatia. The Danube touches Croatia for only 130 kilometers. A large delta arose where the Drava joins the Danube. Kopački Rit is the home to more than 2,000 animal species. It is one of the largest marshlands in Europe. Tito, the former president of Yugoslavia, used to hunt here. It was declared a reserve in 1976 to preserve it as a place of refuge for rare animal and plant species. "50 kilometers downstream, the traces of a recent historical conflict are visible. Vukovar. The Croatian War took place right along the Danube. The city of Vukovar was the center of an ordeal that lasted more than 80 days in 1991, costing the lives of more than 1,600 civilians. The Yugoslav People's Army and Serb paramilitaries occupied the city, firing more than 8,000 grenades per day. Women were raped. Entire families were sent to concentration camps. Many of the sick and wounded, as well as civilians, were executed immediately. Today, the water tower serves as a war memorial. Despite more than 600 bullet holes, it withstood the attacks. Many buildings still bear the scars of war. The psychological wounds of the residents of Vukovar have not yet healed. Everyone processes their war experiences in their own way. For Daria Matkovic-Sivkovic, the women are the heroes who dominate her war memories. Even 28 years later, the events still hang heavily over the city. Our women were abused during the war. They didn't know where their children and husbands were. It was horrible, but they tried to overcome it and even had the strength to start over. They fought their way through. Our Vukovar women are beautiful, strong, and full of love. The city has changed since the battles. The war reduced the population by nearly half. Daria wants to turn Vukovar back into a self-confident Danube city and leave the victim role behind. With my pictures, my clothes and my bright colors, I want to bring people joy and change the image of Vukovar. My friends and I are happy Vukovars. For Daria, painting is a hobby that she pursues after hours. During the day, she runs a hair salon in the city center. The little shop, which she rented and set up 20 years ago, serves as a gallery for her pictures. The hair salon is like a community center. The post-war generation has found their place here. Serbs and Croatians meet each other at Daria's place, without prejudice, and they have a lot of fun. It's not a classic hair salon where people chat and gossip. Many women tell me they love coming to my shop. It's like therapy or meditation for them. The hairdo isn't the main thing, though I do provide really beautiful haircuts. But it's really about the super happy atmosphere here. Daria is now one of the most vibrant personalities in Vukovar. Her pictures are known throughout Croatia under the La Donna brand. They can even be seen printed on t-shirts, cups and shoes. We have infected a lot of people with our optimism. They say, "You're wonderful. Finally something different is coming out of Vukovar, something cheerful and modern." Everyone in Croatia has heard of La Donna and the two cheerful girlfriends. The father of my colleague Jelena fell in Ovčara. My father was badly wounded while defending Croatia in the war. It was awful getting through that. But life simply goes on. Now we're changing the energy of the city.
Super, odlično.
Dobro?
Super, da. Odlično.
The Vukovars want to look towards the future. For them, the Danube is not so much a border as increasingly a place of recovery. The city of Vukovar has become a popular tourist destination for the big river cruisers from Western Europe.
Hello, Fisheries Control. Yes. Mr. Ivan, how long have you been fishing? For an hour. I see you've caught something. Yes. Let's have a look.
Pozdrav Ivane, bistro ti bilo.
When the water level is high, the fisheries control is deployed more frequently. Alan Dozen and his colleague Dalibor Hladik monitor a 54-kilometer section of the Danube, including the meadow landscape near Vukovar.
We have a lot of poachers in this area. When the water level is high, the fish spawn on the flooded meadows. So it's very likely we'll find poachers' traps in addition to the professional fishing nets.
The fish are simply caught while they are spawning by poachers with close meshed nets. Authorized fishermen always have an identification mark on their nets.
To je alat gospodarskog ribara.
This is a legal commercial net. Everything checks out with it. The tag has a mark with a number. There are many poachers who fake this kind of mark and hang them on their illegal nets. That's the problem.
Drones simplify the search in river meadows that are difficult to reach.
Ovdje tu se približi, vidi, ovdje. Tu.
An unknown person in the underbrush is suspicious in this spot.
Hello there. You, come here. Don't leave the boat. Come closer. Fisheries Control. You have fishing equipment? No, I don't. You're not fishing.
The suspicious person has no typical fishing gear with him. Alan has seen this dozens of times. He suspects this man is up to no good. Then Alan makes a find. Right next to the boat, there's a net in the water with an unauthorized mesh size.
This net is an illegal implement for someone without a fishing permit. We will report this man and take him to court. And that's really not your net? Yes, it's mine. Why are you doing this? Do you really need to? Just something for dinner. For dinner? Are there more nets? You'd better tell us right now. I'll search the whole area and pull out the nets. There's one more. Okay.
The poacher can expect a €700 fine. For many Croatians, that's more than 1 month's salary.
The Danube has lost its balance through human intrusion. It's very important that we take care of the ecosystem and re-establish equilibrium. Only then will we be able to enjoy the Danube in the future.
Just 30 kilometers past Vukovar, the Danube flows past the two largest cities in Serbia, Novi Sad and Belgrade. One of the most imposing fortresses in Europe sits enthroned in Novi Sad. The Habsburgs worked on building the Petervardin fortress for more than 80 years. They set their victory over the Ottomans in stone with this bulwark. A whimsical detail is on display. A tower clock with transposed hands. The little one shows minutes and the big one hours, so the captains on the Danube could read the time even from a great distance. 3 bridges connect the parts of the city. For years, however, shipping through Novi Sad was only possible to a limited extent. During the Kosovo War in 1999, the city was the target of NATO air attacks. All bridges were destroyed, which led to the severe obstruction of ship traffic for 6 years. Today, the most popular meeting place in the city lies underneath the reconstructed Liberty Bridge, the Strand, swimming spot in the Danube. This is Dragana Kanaki's place of work. She's the only female lifeguard. We can't afford to just sit back and relax. We must always keep our eyes on the water and on what's happening at the moment. The only thing we know for sure is that the Danube continues to flow. It's just different every day. The water level is constantly changing, so we have to be prepared for all eventualities. When the water is high, the Danube has a flow speed of up to 6 meters per second. The flow determines the direction. People might think they're the best swimmers in the world, but few of them can fight against the Danube. We have to help a lot of them. After that, they definitely pay attention to our instructions. Strand is the largest public beach on the Danube. Up to 20,000 visitors go into the water here per day. The buoys mark a water depth of 1.6 meters. The line has to be moved every few hours due to the constantly changing water level. There's an extreme difference between the Danube and a lake. A lake is calm and you can easily tell what's happening in the water. If someone goes under for a second here in the Danube, they come up again somewhere 2 meters further down, so we may not even notice them. We have to deal with this unpredictability. All 15 lifeguards participate in a mandatory daily training. There have already been 20 life-saving operations this season. Nobody has drowned. One rule must be observed. Victims must be pulled out of the water within 1.5 minutes to have a chance of survival. Today they managed it just in time. It could have gone better. The Danube is indispensable for Novi Sad. It's the soul of the city. When people arrange to meet, it's always here at the beach, on the riverbank. This river brings us all together, so we can have fun in the sun. The Beshka Bridge is conspicuous at kilometer 1,232. At an average height of 50 meters, it's the highest bridge en route to the river's mouth. Belgrade. The capital of Serbia is known as the gate to the Balkans. The confluence of the Sava and the Danube is also the meeting place of several historic trade routes between Central Europe and the Orient. During its eventful history, Belgrade has experienced more wars than almost any other city. It has been conquered more than 40 times and destroyed almost as often. The scars of the 1999 Kosovo War are still quite fresh. But a new urban generation is rising that wants to free itself from the past. Try this is my latest piece. Sonja Pavlica is a fashion designer. She has set up a little studio in her apartment. She has just finished her new collection. Belgrade women take care of themselves. I'd say we have some of the world's most beautiful women, but they still lack the confidence to wear what they really want to. A trace of uniformity and stiffness still hangs over the city. Sonja travels throughout many countries. Various influences are reflected in her unconventional and unique fashion. In Belgrade, nightlife takes place on the water. Party boats with cafes and clubs lie along the Save and the Danube. The riverbank blossomed following the breakup of Yugoslavia. There are now 50 boats anchored here. This is Sonja's second home. The city is vibrant. Belgraders want to dance and have fun and show how much energy they have. Sonja Pavlica is not only a creative fashion designer, but a very popular DJ on the Danube party boats. People here want to enjoy life and dance, and they'll give the shirt off their back to go out at night. I like that about the Belgraders. They push their problems aside. This is their vent for blowing off steam. In Belgrade, it's possible to party on the water 7 nights a week. This isn't typical only of the new generation. Belgraders have always been social beings. They need places to go out to, and want to amuse themselves. They've always been party people, especially here on the Danube. The new generation of 20 and 30-year-olds wants to look forward. There seems to be a radical change everywhere. Nothing is standing still. People are open, international, and light-hearted on the largest river in Europe. The last third of the Danube starts after the Serbian capital, Belgrade. Before the river flows into the Black Sea, it offers a number of superlatives. Beyond the medieval ram fortress, the Danube forms a border, once again. The river separates Serbia from Romania, over a distance of 230 kilometers. Near Moldova-Wecker, the Danube reaches its widest point, 5 kilometers from bank to bank, as though it were a lake. Romanian-Serbian ruins still exist on the riverbank. Flavio Cernescu and Dina Saure use them for thrills. For days, Flavio has observed the place on the Romanian side to see whether it's as deserted as it seems.
I look for places that have a certain magic. By that, I mean buildings that represent the communist era. They are foreign bodies from a different time that is no longer familiar to us. Buildings from a time of megalomania.
In the 1980s, authorities wanted to build a large factory on the riverbank and to pump industrial waste over a bridge onto Ostrov Island. However, with the end of socialism, the joint Romanian-Yugoslav project stopped. What remains is a half-finished bridge to nowhere. Flavio is a software developer. His YouTube videos about his dangerous and mostly illegal climbs on spectacular structures have made him famous.
I try to make a connection with the construction. That is, I analyze it. In my head, I place points along the bridge in case I need to hold on somewhere. If something goes wrong, I need an emergency plan. The crucial moment is when I lift my second foot. At that point, all that connects me to the bridge is the tire. That's the moment when I realize there's no going back. You live most intensely when there's danger. If you didn't live this moment, or if you were never afraid, you'd be dead already.
The Danube now meanders through the Iron Gates, the breakthrough valley between the Serbian Carpathians and Banat Mountains. Directly in front of the Iron Gates, the 14th century Golubac fortress rises majestically. The fortress is a strategic control point that has been the repeated target of Hungarians, Serbs, and Ottomans. It is positioned directly at the Iron Gates bottleneck, through which all ships must pass. The river slices through narrow ravines with rock faces up to 300 meters high. At its narrowest point, the Danube is just 150 meters wide. Because of its rapids and swirls, this section of the river was long considered the most dangerous of all. In the 20th century, locomotives pulled ships upriver through the narrow passages. The ancient Romans attempted to cross the ravine along the rock face on wooden beams. Only the old 1960s ship signals now recall the dangerous Danube. These signals once let the skippers know who had the right of way in the Narrows. Iron Gate 1 went into operation in 1972. It is one of two large hydroelectric plants, 400 meters long with a dam 50 meters high, the fifth largest in the world. This power plant completely changed the character of the Danube. Duško Lazarević goes through the Iron Gates every morning at 5 o'clock.
The Danube is not dangerous anymore. The hydroelectric plant has made it calm and slow. The rapids and swirls are a thing of the past.
5 kilometers in front of the dam on the Serbian side, at one of the deepest points of the Danube, Duško the fisherman has thrown out his nets. The dam has rendered the river more than 50 meters deep here.
The remains of an old military post are below us. There used to be a forest around this post that people didn't clear. This means there are lots of trees beneath us.
One fish particularly likes deep water, the catfish. Hunting catfish is Duško's specialty. But first he has to lure them from the deep with a bučka. This stick with a hole makes noise when the fisherman hits the water. This lures the curious fish to the surface, where it hopefully takes the bait of worms and leeches. His son Mile is still practicing.
Don't move your body. Hold yourself upright. Relax. Only move your hand. Watch me.
They have no luck today. The catfish swims off, since it prefers a stronger current and more sand. Too much mud has settled in front of the dam. 4 barbels, 1 zander, 1 bream and 1 zob. A meager yield. The catch barely covers his fuel. Of 72 Serbs who used to fish at the Iron Gates, only 6 remain. Duško places his hope in tourism. The Romanian side has already done good business with tourists for a long time.
I love the Danube. I hope things will go here the way they did in Romania, and that more tourists come. Then I'll combine tourism with fishing.
His son Mile has different ideas about the future.
I don't want to live like this. I'd rather move to a big city, study, and go abroad. Just live a normal life.
The power plant doesn't just generate energy. It's also the largest garbage dump on the Danube. Especially when the water is high, trash from all the neighboring countries piles up on the dam. Plastic, tree limbs, and even dead animals. At peak times, up to 55 truckloads of garbage are brought to the neighboring disposal site every day. The Iron Gate 1 power plant is a joint Romanian-Serbian project. There are 12 turbines, 6 on each side. The water-generated electricity is divided up equally. About 15% of Romania's total requirement is produced here. Despite the joint project, the Danube remains a strictly monitored border region. In the 1980s, many Romanians died while trying to get across the Danube to Serbia and Western Europe. These tragic stories weigh heavily on many young people. Daniela Borontes from Drobeda Turnu Severin wants to associate something positive with the river again. I try to bring young and old people closer to the Danube with various activities, so they become less afraid. Seriously, I have no idea what they are afraid of. It took a month for Daniela and her scouts to receive permission to access the river island of Shimian. To be honest, not even I know enough about the island. It's a part of our history that is ignored by us locals nowadays. I don't exclude myself. Come on, this is the way. Shimian has always been there, but none of the scouts has ever set foot on it. It's a restricted area. The old ruins of Shimian were built on an island that no longer exists. The island of Adakale used to lie 18 kilometers upriver. Once famous for its citadels, it was built by the Austrians in the middle of the Danube as protection against the Ottomans. The island frequently changed owners, and only the Turkish residents remained. Life flourished on Adakale. 600 people lived and worked here. It was an exclave, unique in the Danube region. Planning for the construction of the power plant and its dam began in 1964, and work on it proceeded quickly. The island of Adakale was to be evacuated and flooded. The fortress was to be moved to a new location on Shimian. Look over there, the numbers on the stones above the door. The most important ones were marked so that they could be reassembled exactly like the original. The residents were forced to resettle in Shimian. Their residences on Adakale were demolished and flattened. The inhabitants of Adakale were deeply wounded by the loss of their homes. Most emigrated to Turkey. The resettlement project failed. Only ruins remained. Daniela and her scouts are fighting for free access to the river, so people can experience its history. I'm convinced things will change. Things are even starting to move on a political level. We are actually very closely connected with Serbia. Only the Danube separates us. The young generation is absolutely determined to explore the river. A couple of kilometers further along, the Danube leaves Serbia behind. It yet again forms a border. now between Bulgaria and Romania, for 470 kilometers. The Baba Vida fortress lies in the Bulgarian city of Vidin. It served as a sentry post for the ancient Romans, a prison for the Ottoman occupiers, and a filming location for Lord of the Rings. The settlement is getting smaller. It's getting quieter along the riverbank. Only 2 bridges connect Romania and Bulgaria. The only imposing water vehicles are the river cruise ships that glide along. In Lom, 50 kilometers downstream, people like things loud and fast. The boys from the Lom Motorsports Club work on their motors twice a week.
Everything depends on the water. We need a special screw for our boats on the Danube. It's different on a lake. We always have to adapt to the water conditions.
The Lom Motorsports Club is the flagship of the Bulgarian motorboat scene. Based in the remote small town, the club has won many European powerboat racing titles. And it has done this on its own initiative, without help from sponsors or the city. Dimitar Marinov, called Mitko, has been a member for 3 years and now specializes in building and driving speedboats.
As a pilot, you have to develop a feeling for your boat, how it moves and reacts. It's hard to describe, you have to feel it.
Their boats are largely self-built, shaped from plywood panels and covered with carbon and Kevlar fiber. Only the engines come from Italy. Their training area on the Danube is close to the club. Mitko is very proud of his 150 horsepower powerboat. He got it second-hand from a world champion in Berlin. They are allowed to train on this section of the Danube with special permission from the city. The national championships begin soon, and Mitko wants to win a spot on the podium.
As soon as you're in the boat, your adrenaline level increases. It's automatic. You can only understand it if you've sat in here. It's a real rush of adrenaline.
The rope on Mitko's arms stops the engine if he turns over or is thrown from the boat. The boats can go up to 185 kilometers per hour. In a competition, they drive 6 laps over a total stretch of 11 kilometers. Mitko's son, Nikolai, has also been a team member for 2 years.
At first, my father didn't want to have me here. He thought it was too dangerous. I just kept on doing it, but now he's okay with it.
Nikolai is now the Bulgarian champion in his age group.
I'm really tense when he's sitting in the boat. My heart really starts pumping.
Bravo!
Years after the end of communism, corruption and mismanagement have weakened the region, which was already impoverished. People are emigrating. Despite its connection to the Danube, this is one of the poorest areas in Bulgaria. In the middle of the Danube, in Belina, lies an infamous prison island. It was once a camp for political prisoners. Today's inmates are murderers and thieves who work on farms on the island. It's early summer. It's getting hot, and the water's rising. The conditions are perfect for swimming and ideal for pests. Stagnant water and high temperatures provide the optimal breeding ground for mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are the summertime enemy of all Danube inhabitants. The only thing that can combat them is fog. Lots and lots of fog. Georgi Georgiev comes to the rescue.
People always think something's burning and call the fire department. Now we let the guys know before we start so they don't respond to emergency calls.
Every day, Georgi mixes 500 liters of insecticide, which kills mosquitoes within 10 hours. It's supposedly harmless to humans, though nobody questions this during the summertime.
People here are really happy when they see one of these trucks. It's very important to them that we battle the biting beasts.
Georgi is at work early in the morning and in the evening, when the mosquitoes are most active. This year, high water and heat have led to a real infestation, and to shift work for 8 people. They also make house calls. The owner of a hotel on the bank of the Danube has called. Mosquitoes are driving him crazy.
Hi, you called because of the mosquitoes? Yeah, we're desperately waiting for you. Critters have almost eaten us alive. Okay, I'll start in a minute. 3 or 4 years ago, there were hardly any mosquitoes. People almost forgot what it can mean to live on the Danube. This year, it's been almost impossible to control them. The next population will come out of the water in 5 to 10 days.
A weapon that is always ready for smaller operation is the mobile mosquito cannon. Georgi knows where the enemy is hiding.
High temperatures are the enemy of every mosquito, so they mostly hide in bushes and forests. You won't see them during the day on an open field.
It's going to be a long, busy month for Georgi. Downriver in Vetrain, Bulgaria, nets are set out every morning and every afternoon. Not by fishermen, but by biologists from Sofia. Borislava Margaritova and her colleagues have been working on the Danube for 3 months. They're on the lookout for the king of fish, the star of the Danube, the sturgeon. For thousands of years, the sturgeon migrated from the Black Sea up the Danube. Today it is nearly extinct, and catching one requires patience. Only a couple of barbels have lost their way and got caught. And then, a stroke of luck. Waiting to see what's in the net and then seeing the population recover, it's very emotional. It shows us that we are on the right path. We can once again observe the fish growing. Borislava and her team are fighting to save the sturgeon. They release tens of thousands of young fish every year. Each catch provides information about its behavior. The scientists want to understand the sturgeon and its environment better. The interesting thing about sturgeons is not only that they have existed since the age of the dinosaurs, but that they have nearly the same life cycle as humans. Sturgeons are very small when they are born, and they are only capable of reproducing when they are 15, as is the beluga sturgeon, for example. They can live to be 100. The sturgeon is a wanderer with an irrepressible basic instinct. For millennia, the fish swam up to 2,000 kilometers upstream in the Danube, all the way to its spawning grounds in Austria and even Germany. That is, until the Iron Gates power plant ultimately cut off its path. Overfishing and poaching took care of the rest. Sturgeon roe is sold at top prices. The abandoned fish farms in Bulgaria are testimony to the hype around the popular beluga caviar. 1 kilogram of beluga caviar can sell for 2,000 to 5,000 euros. Fishermen could buy an apartment if they caught one single sturgeon. The Danube sturgeons are threatened by extinction. Catching them has been prohibited for 8 years. Borislava and her team mark every sturgeon with a sensor. They are trying to discover where its spawning ground is. The fishing ban is going to be renegotiated next year. The scientists want to use their findings proactively to protect the spawning grounds. We are interested in reviving the population. We want future generations to grow up with these dinosaurs of the Danube, without fishermen having to give up their traditional trade. There are fewer and fewer settlements lining the riverbank. The Danube is now becoming Romanian on both sides. From here, there are still 400 kilometers left to the Black Sea. Over the millennia, the Danube has deposited huge amounts of mud and gravel before the delta. Shapes that are reminiscent of dunes have been created by floods and erosion. The region is characterized by its many tributaries, marshes and reed beds. Between them lie small settlements such as the village of Marașu.
Slow down, you crazy cows.
Nico Nodelcu's cows can finally come out of their sheds again. They had to stay on dry land for 2 weeks until the high water receded. The animals look forward to fresh fodder on the Danube island. small island of Braila is now dry.
When the water was high, the Danube went up about here. That was just 2 weeks ago. And look, now it's already gone. The water comes and the water goes.
15 stubborn cows are supposed to go over to the island.
You know what the problem is? The cow is going to escape from him again. 2 people have to hold on to him. Doru, help Marianne. 3 people can't manage to rein in 1 cow, damn it.
There are no bridges until the Danube Delta. Instead, there are ferries, often self-built. The Marashu cow ferry belongs to Nicu. It has brought cows over to the Danube island for 70 years.
Bă, țineți aproape la viței. Uite calul mică, e udă rampa, bă. Încet, încet. Gata, bă. Capitan să...
Done. I tell you, we are true captains. Put up the ramp.
Bă, rampele le tragem pe pod. Odată le treceam în not alți ani când...
My grandparents and parents used to swim with the animals to the other side. Fortunately, they built the ferry at some point, but it takes a lot of work. It needs new wood every year.
In addition to wood, the ferry requires a lot of strength. At least 4 people have to man the paddle wheel. Depending on the mood of the Danube, they have to pick up and deliver the animals up to 8 times a year. The entire family has to pitch in.
There's a strong current about 10 meters from shore. It can steer our ferry in a completely different direction.
The trip takes 15 minutes. It's routine for the cows. 23 hectares of land on the island belong to Nicu. The animals feed themselves and remain on the fields until autumn, or at least until the next high water gets in their way. He would love to utilize the dry diked-in mainland on the opposite bank. It is considered extremely fertile, but the local government has leased it out to a Saudi sheikh. And so, only the small island of Braila is left to the inhabitants of Maraju.
It's hard for us, since the only land we own is here on the island. The only reason they couldn't sell it is that it's flooded several times a year. If it were dammed in, they would have already sold it off thousands of times.
Shortly before the Danube flows into the Black Sea, it spreads out like a fan into countless distributaries. This is the Danube Delta. It consists of a 5,000 square kilometer natural environment of lagoons, marshes and lakes, which are largely left untouched. 30 different ecosystems provide a habitat for thousands of animal species. The pelican is the symbol of the delta. There are 7,000 birds here, in the largest colony in Europe.
You don't have to be a daredevil to land in the delta, but you have to know the terrain. There's not much room and no runway. We're in the wilderness, and you need skill and the right plane.
Albert Malaxa owns a flight school in Galati, 130 kilometers away. He is one of the few pilots who dare to go into the delta.
40 kilometers in every direction. There are only reeds, marsh, and water. There's no room for an emergency landing. You have to be careful and prepare the plane for emergencies. A bit of luck doesn't hurt either.
Albert is usually booked for special assignments, such as counting animals on behalf of environmental protection agencies, or, as in this case, for aerial nature photography.
It's not only the perspective from above that's interesting. The nuances of the delta are permanently changing. It's a never-ending metamorphosis. It seems like it's dressed differently every time you fly over it.
Only 15,000 people live in the entire Danube Delta. Sfântu Gheorghe is one of the largest villages and located at the mouth of the southernmost tributary. There are no paved roads. All goods designated for the 800 residents must be transported by ship and then loaded on horse-drawn carriages. The main mode of transport is the boat. In addition to the common fishing vessels, there are emergency vehicles in the little community harbour. Yes? Suspected fracture. Where? On the canal. Okay.
Okay.
We need 10 minutes. Thanks. An ambulance on the water is nothing unusual in Sfântu Gheorghe. Two ships in the Romanian part of the Danube Delta provide around-the-clock first aid for emergency patients. More than 5,000 kilometers of rivers and canals traverse the delta. The helpers can reach even the most remote areas with their little boats. Raluca Ilie is a nurse. She covers 2 shifts per week on the emergency boat. Hello, what happened?
I think I broke my hand.
The fisherman is injured. Stay nice and calm. Does it hurt?
Sure does.
Did you fall? When exactly?
20 minutes ago, a boat came by and made waves. I lost my balance and fell on my hand.
Slipping on boats causes most accidents. We'll stabilize your arm, okay? Then I'll try to bring it back into position. That's all. Put it at the level of your chest. About like this. And now let's try to go onto the boat. The fishermen know the routine, but strangers and vacationers are shocked at first when we tell them that the next hospital is an hour and 40 minutes away. They often panic, but if we take time to explain everything to them, they calm down again.
Dar așa e ok, liniștim, le explicăm.
After more than 2,800 kilometers, the Danube has arrived at the end of its journey through half of Europe. The southernmost of 3 Danube tributaries meets the Black Sea directly after Swanto Gheorghe. One more time, the river shows what it's capable of. It's a paradise for scientists.
This estuary is really something special. For us, it's the most beautiful and spectacular in Europe. There's no dam blocking the way, no construction, no waterworks. This allows us to observe the natural deformation process of a coastline.
Ștefan Constantinescu is a geographer from Bucharest. He spends 4 months a year with his colleague Luminița Preoteasa at the mouth of the Danube. They want to find out how the land, the sea and the river interact with one another. They test the sediment content of the river water every day. Billions of tiny stones are transported by the Danube and washed up here. One cup of riverbank sediment is enough to provide Luminița with essential information. Here in this sediment sample, we have almost the entire history of Europe by means of the area that Danube flows through. There is sediment from the Alps, the Black Forest, and the Carpathians. It comes from all kinds of rocks, volcanic, metamorphic, and sedimentary. At the end, all of them are this tiny. The Danube washes 25 million tons of sediment into the Black Sea per year. The ocean current carries them onward. The coast is subject to constant deformation. New land arises piece by piece from land that has eroded elsewhere.
The mouth of the Danube may represent the end of a journey for some people. For us, it's the starting point for future research. We have never looked at this area as an ending point. The cosmos opens up to us here every time.
Yet, man's influence on the delta is palpable. Global warming is causing the sea level to rise. The sediment has been greatly reduced by the large dam in the Iron Gates. This makes it all the more important to protect this unique landscape. We must give the delta room to grow. We cannot drain it and let it dry out. Man should never subjugate this place to his needs.